When you're plowing, safety is very important. Always being aware of your surroundings. What fixed obstacles are around you, what pedestrian traffic or fellow employees or team members are working around you, and what heavy equipment might be working around you. It's important that you use the equipment to its fullest potential. You want to use the power of the equipment, you don't want to abuse the power of the equipment. In the case of our fleet, the vast majority of our fleet, of our snowplow fleet, consists of Ford F550s and Ford F350s. All units are four-wheel drive. Our plows are either straight blades or V blades. This particular truck here working behind me has a V plow on it. What we're gonna always remember, we always plow from the building envelope or the facade of the building out to the curb. We never push snow up against the building. We always wanna move the snow away from the building and out to the outside curb of the building. In some cases, you may be working tandem with a loader that has a box. So we may be peeling snow out and windrowing it in order for a push box to come and cart that snow off to a loading zone. It's important that when you're plowing, and of course you're gonna have your blade angled and you're gonna have it angled in the direction that you're moving the snow out to. Very important that you don't bite more than you can actually chew. In other words, don't take that blade and put the entire blade into the snow that you need to plow. You want to use anywhere from a half to 3/4 of the blade so that you don't get any runoff. If you look here, this operator does not have runoff coming off of his blade. He's cleaning the parking lot very nicely. As he comes down, you're going to get a really good view at him working and using the blade effectively. A very efficient plow operator, when he's backing out of a pile or a curb, he's going to become accustomed to raising that plow at the same time that he's backing up. All of those moves and synchronization of raising a plow and backing out of a pile, getting them down to a science and a comfort level, speeds up operations and improves productivity. So being comfortable with the equipment, being comfortable with the truck, knowing where that reverse is, lifting the plow, coming out of the pile, dropping the blade, putting the vehicle back in drive, that becomes a sequence that should be very smooth. It should have rhythm to it, and that'll speed up your productivity. When you're plowing, speed is never your friend ahead of safety. I tell my operators, they both start with an S, but they're not the same. Safety first, speed second. Second to that is that when you're trying to peel down a lot and you're trying to scrape, what is what I mean by that, when you're trying to scrape down a lot, you don't want to go so fast that you're leaving residue under your plow, because your plow can skip and leave residue underneath it. You know, we want to scrape down the lot so that it's ready for salting and de-icing. Now, in the case right now, it's still snowing. You can see it behind me, it's snowing. So we're making a rotation on the site that we're on. We're doing a lot, we're moving to the next lot, and we're coming back to it. But when we're doing final cleanup, it's extremely important that we plow it properly and that we don't leave residue, and we don't go so fast that our plow skips, and then we have a mess when we're trying to salt and we have a lot of slush around. The lot should be cleaned in such a way that one nice application of salt or de-icer will take all the residue off the asphalt, and it'll be perfectly clean following that application. Now, this particular lot here, this is easy. It's as easy as it gets. In fact, we started off the training video with this type of lot because we discussed the principle of moving the snow from the facade of the building out to the curb. This is a rectangular lot. So our driver is going to go back and forth, our operator is going back and forth. He's moving the snow from the building envelope out to the curb. Easy. We're going to now go to another lot that'll have some islands in it. It'll have some vehicles, perhaps vehicles of employees that report to the buildings that we're here working at. We're going to take a look at some principles in plowing in and around some obstructions like that. Islands, vehicles, any type of fixed object. Let's see how we would handle that in a safe way and in a productive way. Now we have a different type of lot here. We have a lot that's more narrow. We have a lot that has islands that jet out, peninsulas and islands. We have a lot that has vehicles parked in it. So we have vehicles here. Granted, it's at nighttime and there's not as many vehicles here, but in principle, we understand the point. So how would we tackle a lot like this? How would we tackle a lot that has objects that would impede our plowing. Well, here's the building, here's the curb. So as we discussed before, we want to move the snow from the building out to the curb. Let's take a look at a truck doing just that. Working its way along the edge of the building as tight as it can get and moving the snow out. Now notice something. As the truck came here off the curb and he moved up, obviously coming off of this curb right here, he couldn't drive over it. Well, what was the result? The result was that, of course, we're gonna leave a piece of snow here, or an area of snow, that the truck could not plow. That's perfectly okay, because as the truck begins to do final cleanup, then he's going to have an opportunity to push this snow back up this way. Or, in this case, we have a sidewalk here. So would it be wise to push that snow up there? In this case, it would not. If that was turf, it would be perfectly fine to push the snow up that way. Let's keep an eye on our truck for now as he efficiently moves the snow and plows it from the edge of the building out to the outside curb. Keep in mind, right now, we're demonstrating how we're plowing off a lot. In the first case was plowing off a lot that was just an open rectangle. In this case is plowing off a lot that has some fixed objects, some islands, some peninsulas, some vehicles, etc. If you were plowing and we were having heavy snow accumulation and we were simply trying to keep a facility open, we may be much more focused on just the lanes. Equally, if it was during the daytime or during operating hours, some facilities are 24/7 operating hours, we may be hyper-focused on the center lanes and keeping them open versus actually working our way into parking areas. The type of properties that we service in East Coast facilities are industrial properties, distribution and logistics. That's what we specialize in. Many of our properties are very large. They could be as large as 2 million, 3 million, even 4 million square feet. Those are huge properties to tackle. So when you're plowing, it's like, where do you start? On the properties of this size, there are many moving parts. We have multiples of trucks, loaders, all types of equipment. So there's maybe an illustration where you've probably heard it, where you could say, well, if you want to eat an elephant, how do you do it? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So when you're plowing, don't jump all over the place. You'll be given instructions, of course, of which area is designated for your vehicle or your rig. But when you plow, focus on that area, complete it properly. Don't think about the next area you're going to. Don't take one bite and then leave and go take another bite somewhere else. Finish areas effectively, curb to curb, and then move to the next one. Okay. So here's a good example of our truck weaving in and out of cars. He's going to do it in just such a way that he's not going to cause damage. These are trained operators. You could also see as he was going, he's adjusting his blade. That blade's moving. It's being adjusted as he's plowing. He's just not dropping it and angling it, as I mentioned before. When you come up to a curb, you've got to lift that plow up as you're coming up to the curb, and you got to be up above that curb so that you don't hit it. We do need to stack the snow with the plows. You're only going to do so much stacking with a plow truck. So you got to be very careful around curbs. Many times you may come up to the curb with your blade. If you're going to do that, you straighten your blade out. You might touch the curb just to feel where it is. Lift your plow blade up and push that snow up just a little bit. Be very careful of trees, of shrubs, bollards, fences, anything that's on the other side of that curb. Do not push snow up with the truck and damage whatever's on the other side of that curb. Do not damage the curb itself. Here's a good example of how you make an adjustment as you're plowing. Take a look behind me. I've got a situation here where the truck came in to clean this area out. It left an area of snow that it could not touch with the plow because of coming around that curb. So in this case, the truck turns around and it pushes all that in. He's gonna push. Now, why can the truck push in that direction? It's because on the other side of that curb is a landscape bed, and there's not a lot of obstructions other than a single tree. It's very different from further down the parking lot, where on the other side of the curb, there's the sidewalk, as I pointed out before. Again, we'll get to clearing that in just a few minutes, the proper way to do it. So here we have it. A skid steer being used where it needs to be used. Back dragging, getting the snow out of an area where a truck, it wasn't so fast, wasn't so efficient, wasn't so easy. Can you back drag with a truck? Yes. Will our operators use our trucks to back drag at times? Absolutely. Maybe there's not a skid steer right nearby. Maybe it's just a few swipes or a few passes. Sure, we can use a truck to do that. But it's better to use a skid loader. We get the down pressure, we can scrape, we can pull it back out. It's all about using the right tool for the right application. It's about productivity. The reason that he's a good operator is because he just had to move a little parcel of snow with a straight blade, and you don't do that with the blade angled, and you don't do that fast. You just take your time and do it. You could actually rock your blade back and forth to move a little bit of snow when you're doing final cleanup, so that you don't have to have a box come up here just to move a little bit of snow out of the way out of a center lane. Just an intermediary recap. So far we've covered plowing off large lots, big areas, rectangles, squares, open areas. We've gone through plowing off smaller lots, fixed objects, islands, peninsulas, curbs, more confined areas. We talked about using trucks where we should use trucks, and using skid loaders where we should use skid loaders, depending on the application. Now we're going to look at the last piece of plowing, which is roads. Roads perhaps are the easiest to do, but they're also the most important areas of the sites that we manage. One thing we want to pay close attention to is the direction that we're plowing when we're opening roads. On the right-hand side of the truck right now, there's a sidewalk. In fact, you can see a shoveling crew there. So our operator is never going to curl snow and point it towards that sidewalk. Sometimes there's a sidewalk on both sides of the road, and you have to. And then later we have to come and clean it off, clean the curb with a loader. But in this case, there's a sidewalk to the right and there's a curb to the left. So the operator is ensuring that he is curling from right to left so that he doesn't block the sidewalks. Ideally, when you're plowing, it's good to start in the center of the lane. Start in the center. In many cases, you can just leave your plow straight, or you can turn it to one side or the other. After you go down the center lane, then you're going to move the snow to the curb, to the right and to the left. This is what it looks like to move the snow to the curb after you've cut down the center lane. Here we have another great example of our operator using his head. We've got a sidewalk off to the left, and he's curling from left to right to make sure that he does not pile snow along that curb. Again, we'll see the sidewalk off to the right, the curb off to the left, and so our driver is doing a good job of moving that snow from right to left in this case.